What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're celebrating the release of Age of Ascension. The new Keyforge set, Age of Ascension, came out today, so I wanted to bring you a top 10, except I can't bring you a top 10, because I don't know what the top 10 cards are, and neither do you. So I thought, you know what? Let's look at the 10 most interesting, most exciting, weirdest new cards, however you want to look at it. Actually, quick side note before we start the video proper, I'm uploading this on Friday morning when the set drops, and then I'm heading over to the UK Games Expo, to the Birmingham Vault Tour, where I will be casting. Only Saturday and Sunday, I won't be casting Friday. But if you're at the UK Games Expo, come say hi and we'll play some games, it'll be fun. Couple of honourable mentions before we start. Punctuated Equilibrium. This is a great new Untamed card. When you play it, each player discards their hand and refills a hand like it was the end of the turn. This is great draw power because, well, you play all the cards you want, you play it, discard your hand, draw a new hand of 6, or however many you should at the end of your turn. If there's anything bringing it up or down, you listen to it. Now look, there's going to be times this discards cards you don't want to discard, but other than that, I adore it. I also love Into the Fray. Into the Fray is a new Brobnar card, whereby you designate a friendly Brobnar creature, and until the end of turn, when you fight with it, you ready it. It's not really going to work unless you give them Skirmish. Skirmish means you can start a fight and you don't take any damage. When you've got Skirmish, the rule of 6 kicks in. Either you fight 6 creatures, or you fight all of their creatures, destroy them all, and then you reap once. And then there's no one left to fight. That's really kind of cool, but you need Skirmish to make the most of it, so it didn't quite make the list. Binding Iron, I don't think it's a great card. I think we've got other cards that stop your opponent drawing, but when you play it, your opponent gains free chains. This is the only card we've had in the first 2 sets that gives your opponents chains. That makes it extremely noteworthy as far as I'm concerned. But we've had cards in the past like Succubus that stop your opponent drawing every turn, that are arguably better, really depends how long it stays out for. And then Nightforge. Nightforge is a new key cheating kind of card. Nightforge is a Shadows card that gives you an Ember bonus, and if you've not forged a key this turn, you may forge a key at +4 current cost. Really +3 because you get an Ember bonus when you play the card. I love it, but if you already forged a key at the start of your turn, you can't use it. And you can't use more than one of these in a turn, even if you can get more than one of these into your hand, and that's the reason it doesn't make the list. So I'm not putting this in any particular order, because I don't think that's particularly fair. We'll start off with Might Makes Right. I've got 1 or 2 from each house to make it fair. Might Makes Right is a Brobnar card, my favourite one in the set. It's got an Ember bonus, and when you play it, you may sacrifice any number of creatures of a total power of 25 or more, and then forge a key at no cost. Okay, fine, you might not have enough creatures to do so, and even if you do, you're going to basically wipe your board, but you forge a key at no cost, and really what you want to do here, reap with all your creatures, sacrifice them to forge a key, and hopefully have enough Ember at the start of your next turn to forge another key. Yeah, for a house that doesn't really do Ember generation like the others, this is fairly phenomenal. Over in Sanctum, we've got one card that I really adore and I think is super interesting. It's Barrister Joya. Barrister Joya is a 5-power creature with 1 armor that stops your creatures reaping. Just flat out stops your creatures reaping. And look, we got plenty of things to hurt reaping in Age of Ascension. It's one of the real themes of the set. Zyzizic Shockworm, or however you pronounce it, is one of 2 mask cards that stun all of the enemy creatures when they reap. Stormcrawler's the other one if you were wondering. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, Barrister Joya is just a cut above all the rest of them. I know it's 5-power, 1 armor, don't have elusive. It's not the sturdiest thing we've ever seen, although sturdier than a lot. But while it's down, your opponent flat out cannot reap. They have got to devote their resources to taking you down, or give up on reaping. Yeah, that's pretty good in my book. Now, Shadows have a very fun, very interesting card, Scowly Caper. And this is one of the cards, and we've seen a bunch of these in Age of Ascension, whereby you play it not to help you, but to hurt your opponent, by doing stuff to their side of the board. So Scowly Caper is a 2-power 0-armor creature with Skirmish, and when you enter play, it actually goes under your opponent's control, and it belongs to any of their houses. They can use it on every one of their turns. Oh yeah, but at the end of every one of your turns, you destroy one of its neighbours. Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn good, ladies and gentlemen. I love the idea of this creature that you put down on your opponent's side of the board, kind of like a spy, that they need to try and get off the board even though it's one of their creatures, except it's got Skirmish, so if they start a fight with it, it definitely won't be KO'd. So you don't attack it, they've got to have some kind of action or artifact, or indeed creature, that can do damage to it to take it off the board. Otherwise, it doesn't get off the board because it's got Skirmish. This is one of the best design cards I've seen since Keyforge started. Now, moving into Untamed, we have a wonderful creature, Aemberspine Mongrel. I adore this. It works so beautifully as a card. After your opponent uses a creature to reap, you gain an Ember. So basically, every time your opponent reaps, you also gain Ember. Except it's actually better for you, because your opponent cannot forge a key at the end of their turn, but then it becomes your turn and you absolutely can forge a key at the beginning of your turn. You see how this is working out? So your opponent's going to go, right, I need to take that down. No, you've got hazardous free. Before the fight even happens, they take free damage. So they've got to have a creature with 4 power or more just to even start the attack without getting instantly destroyed. I love this. We've also got Heart of the Forest. Now, Heart of the Forest is an interesting one. It's an artifact with an Ember bonus, and each player cannot forge keys while they have more forged keys than their opponent. So when you forge a key, you've got to wait until your opponent forges before you forge another. And same thing for your opponent. This will massively slow down the game. It will stop either player just forging 2 consecutive keys. Now, that's not strictly true. If your opponent is 1 ahead of you, then you can forge, and then if they don't forge, you can forge again. But it really stops one player running away with a game. In decks where there's no way of getting rid of artifacts, this can really change the landscape of a game. Moving into Dis, we've got Shadows of Dis. Now, Shadows of Dis is a really fun card. It's an action card with an Ember bonus. Until the end of next turn, enemy creatures' text boxes are considered blank, except for traits. Elf, giant, things like that. That means no Skirmish, no Elusive, no Omega, no Alpha, no Deploy, nothing. Although I'll have to check the ruling on this, but presumably that means if you play Shadow of Dis, your opponent can take advantage of a creature with Alpha or Omega without taking the downside, which would be kind of funny. Alpha, it's got to be the first card you play. Omega, your turn ends when you use it. Cool. The thing is, you turn off all of their skills, all of their abilities. You turn off everything for all of your opponent's creatures. Tell me that doesn't sound like fun. We've also got the Key Imps. Now, we've got Bronze Key Imp, Silver Key Imp, and Gold Key Imp. And what they do is they stop both players forging a particular key. Bronze Key Imp stops both players forging their first, Silver their second, Gold their third. So if you forged your first key but your opponent hasn't, whack down a Bronze Key Imp and they can't until they take it out. And remember, you play this on your turn, and sure, your opponent can destroy it on their next turn, but not until they've already not been able to forge a key. If you play this right, worst case scenario, you stop them forging a key for 1 turn. Best case scenario, it could be way longer than that. These could really, really make a difference. Of course, you could also play down Gold Key Imp and then neither player can actually get rid of it, and the game just goes on, for eternity. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Now, Logos has one card that really springs to mind for me, and it is Redacted. Redacted is an artifact, and after you choose Logos as your active house, you take 1 Ember from the common pool, put it on Redacted. When you've got at least 4 Ember on Redacted, you sacrifice it and forge a key at no cost. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't often going to work, Because you see, assuming your opponent has no way to get rid of artifacts, this will give you a key on your 5th Logos turn, and that's if you had Redacted in hand, or drew it, on your 1st Logos turn. Yeah, this isn't always going to work. How many games have you gone through without having 5 turns from one particular house? I'm assuming a lot. That's not to say it's not super interesting and fun and awesome, but it is to say temper your enthusiasm just a little bit for this one. It's still one of the most interesting, funnest, most exciting cards in Wave 2, but I'm not sure it's one of the best. And finishing off with Mars, we've got Martian Generosity. Now this one was spoiled a little while ago and it instantly captured people's attention. Because you see, Martian Generosity gives you an Ember bonus, and then you lose all of your Ember and draw 2 cards for each Ember you lost. So you could lose 5 Ember, draw 10 cards, have a ridiculous turn, and then you'll probably just get a bunch of your Ember back because you get all of your coming into play, your Ember bonuses, all of that. I really love this. You've seen the impact, assuming you've played a bunch of Keyforge, you've seen the impact that library access had when you've got really good draw power. And although I don't think this is quite on the same plane of greatness as library access, I don't think it's too far behind. And finally, and this might actually end up being one of the best cards in the set, but it's certainly one of my favourites, Collector Worm. The first thing that should jump out to you about Collector Worm is the gigantic 5 armor. That's ridiculous. It's only a 2 power, but 5 armor. And when you fight and survive the fight, but then again you've got 5 armor, you're probably going to survive the fight, you archive the creature the Collector Worm was fighting. And if that creature leaves your archives, it goes to your opponent's hand, which could clog up the hand, and that could be really fun. Now, if you're playing a deck that revolves around archiving, this could backfire, because if you take your archive, you've got to give your opponent all their creatures back. Though, like I've said, you might end up clogging up their hand with creatures they don't want to play, and that could be kind of fun. It means they don't draw at the end of their turn until they played all the creatures or discarded them. But the point is, this is going to survive a bunch of fights, and you can go and archive all your opponent's creatures. If you destroy their creatures, they can get them back with a whole bunch of different cards. But if you archive them, yeah, they ain't getting them back easily. I like this, ladies and gentlemen, and as far as I'm concerned, they are the 10 most exciting, most interesting cards from Age of Ascension. I will be bringing you my top 10 list from Age of Ascension, but not until I've done some polls over on Facebook and really played a whole bunch of games and talked to a bunch of people that have played a whole bunch of games, so that we can really figure out what the actual 10 best cards are, rather than giving snap judgments because we haven't played enough games. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. They're my most interesting favourite call it what you will cards from Age of Ascension, but I'd like to know which cards have caught your fancy. So let me know in the comment section while going nuts and being nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Keyforge, but also a bunch of others. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.